And you'll now see that it has the latent variables up here at the top. You can, if you want, use the little dash box and select your diagram and move this around so that it appears at a nice place in your figure. You can right click on that and then deselect all of the objects here, and you're back to where you started from. By default, Mplus is showing you the unstandardized solution here. So perhaps in analyses, not multi-group analyses, but in some analyses, you're interested in looking at the standardized solution. Under the View tab, you can then say you would like to take a look at the standardized estimates. And you'll see you have a variances at 1 on the top, and the squared loading plus the error term will give you the number 1 for each of the manifest variables as well. This diagram isn't very pretty because our estimates and standard errors are covering each other up. There's a couple of ways to remedy that. One is to grab the individual variables and move them to the left or right so you have that space. Sometimes in diagram you have so many variables going on that you would really like to just change where they are. To do that, right-click on the path and select Switch Measurement Movement of Estimate On/Off, and a little dot will appear over your estimate. And you can then move that parameter estimate up. And when you are done, you can switch the movement off again, and your little dot will disappear. Sorry about that. I want to right-click on my little arrow, change the movement of this estimate, and move that down, and it will slide down there, and you can see what you need to see. Maybe it's the case in your analysis you would not like to see parameters and standard errors. You would like to see confidence intervals. That's no problem. Again, up underneath the View tab, you can say Show Confidence Intervals, and you will then see the parameters with the 95% confidence intervals. As far as I can tell, there is no way to include intercepts or means of factors in your model in the diagram. It doesn't accommodate that, but for confirmatory factor models, this will work fairly well. So let me come back and right-click on that movement. It can also be the case that maybe you're interested in changing where these parameters appear. Maybe it annoys you, for example, that the variances of the factors appear over to the left. So underneath the diagram model, you can say change all variance angles. And if you want them to appear directly over the variance components, you would say 12 o'clock. You have other options as well. And now your parameter estimates appear at the top. And if I want to move these parameter estimates around, I can come up to the top and say select variance or residual errors only, and then I can come over on this part and move these variances around to where I would like them to actually be if I need to customize that a little bit more. Some individuals like to see a bit of the Bentler-Weeks formulation, which has latent variables that have circles on them. The default from Mplus is simply to show you arrows. If you want to see those, you can as well. View the residual variables, and you'll see little circles down there that denote the error terms for each of those. Myself, I think it's maybe not that necessary. Inside of this, maybe you would like to have a more descriptive view of what the individual variable is. So underneath the diagram, I can say, let me select my variable object, and I can then rename that object to something else. Let's just say affil for affiliation, and you'll see a descriptive name there rather than the names of the packages that you used in your Mplus program. That basically covers many of the things you can do. Oh, I forgot to mention, maybe you don't like the arrows starting at a single dot here, and you'd like to see them kind of spread out. To do that, we'll come into the diagram and select Change All Path Arrows To, and you have a variety of options here. Center to center is probably what you want. It looks a little bit more like Amos's default behavior. That then gives you pretty much everything you need to know. Now you're interested in knowing, how do I save this work? Well, you can come up to the File option and save this diagram for work later. Similarly, if you want to export your graph, you can then export this to a PDF. And that will then generate for you a PDF. Now, if you want, you can then take this diagram and then pull that into something like Adobe Illustrator. This is a vector-based diagram. It's not a JPEG or a PNG, so you can resize these circles, make the lines thicker, and so forth. I also forgot in talking about this that if I don't like the thickness of these arrows, and I have to change those a little bit, I can come into the diagram and change the thickness of all the arrows to something a little more than 1 point, and that will make them stand out a little bit more. If I would like, I can also select only the significant paths that are in the model. I don't recommend that because that confuses the reader as to the model you fit versus the model you want to show them. And that pretty much deals with everything that you would like to probably use the diagrammer to make a publication quality work. If there are any questions, let me know.